Okay, so we're going to get started. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining the PMC office hours around event follow-up best practices. My name is Kaylin Neal, and I work on the channel marketing team in EMEA, helping to enable partners through PMC. And we're talking about how to follow up once you've successfully executed an event, whether that be an in-person event or a live webinar. I'm joined by my colleague Kristia, who many of you know, who also leads Atlassian's channel marketing team here. And we have Nigel Radford, founder and CEO of New Verve Consulting, and his colleague Claire Doherty, their marketing executive, and they're based in Glasgow, Scotland. They're going to share some of their best practices, tips, and tricks after they've run quite some successful events, including Atlassian in Scotland last year, which they're going ahead with next year as well. Hopefully the sound issue is resolved. We are going to be taking questions, and we're going to do a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions throughout, please use the Q&A feature. We also have some polls, I think 3 throughout. Kristia's launching the first one now. It'd be great if you could answer those. Yeah, and just so you know, this is being recorded.
Hi everyone, just to make sure you can hear me now.
Yay, it's quite clear now. Thanks,
Okay,
Nigel.
good. Hi there, sincere apologies. We put in a new audio conferencing system, and it's obviously just let us down at the last minute, so apologies.
That's okay. You're loud and clear now, so all good.
Cool.
Yay, going forward, you wanna... Cool, so just a quick agenda. So first, we're going to be going over Atlassian's best practices and how you can leverage PMC to follow up with your event attendees. Then Nigel and Claire are going to step in with a quick presentation about how they've found success with their Atlassian in Scotland events. And then finally, we're going to turn it over to all of you guys for any questions. And again, feel free to ask event-related questions or any just general overall PMC related questions. Yes, good timing there. Awesome. So we know that the logistics behind organizing, promoting, and executing an event can be arduous and stressful. And once the event is over, you're usually breathing a big sigh of relief. But at the heels of your successful event are your attendees who are feeling quite enthused and eager to know more about the solutions that you offer. So it's important that you take advantage of this window to contact your attendees. And you can use PMC to activate a post-event campaign, which will move your attendees further down the funnel. I had a little video. Not sure if it's going to play. Yeah, you can just kind of see the video. So I'm going to explain, but this is helpful, hopefully. So in PMC, you can create your own emails to send out to attendees who verified that they would like to be contacted. There are a number of different templates within PMC with options of adding images, text, call to action buttons, and more. To create your own email in Zift, you log into your account, click the campaigns feature tab at the top, and then click create your own campaign. You can kind of follow along this video right now. You name your campaign, then you add an activity, which in this case would be an email. Then you click create your own email, and from here you can choose which template, as here, fulfills your needs, and then you can upload your list of attendees, create your text, add your images, all of that. But be sure to send out your first follow-up email the day after the event. So we are suggesting 24 hours when it's still fresh in everybody's minds. In the coming slides, we're going to talk about what messaging to send out. Like the email function, you can also create and launch your own social media posts from PMC. You can click the social media tab at the top and then click Create Post to write your own message, upload images or videos from your event, and use any relevant hashtags. Make sure to link your LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook accounts, and then simply schedule the activity whenever you'd like. This is a great opportunity to thank your attendees and share any images. In PMC, you can navigate to the collateral tab at the top to search for a number of different assets. We have them in English, German, and French, and a number of other languages as well. You can find white papers, ebooks, infographics, webinars, and customer stories, and more, which can provide a more in-depth look into the solution or product that you were showcasing during your event. These are great for sending out in a follow-up email so that attendees get more familiar with the product. You can also use the assets for a post-event blog or share them with your salespeople who will eventually get in touch with these prospective customers. And lastly, once you send out your follow-up communications, you can track who's opening your emails and clicking on your social and downloading the content provided. So Zift, PMC, tracks leads and scores contacts according to how they interact with your campaign. Make sure that you and your sales team are aligned so that you both understand what constitutes a lead and when you should be handing over from marketing to the sales team. So we're going to launch the second poll now, just around how much time you wait until following up with your attendees after an event. Great, so it looks like 24 hours is the standard practice here, which is great and what we suggest. So great, moving on. Cool. So I'm going to run through a number of scenarios here, all of which start with a post-event email and end with a sales handover. So I'm going to just run through them individually. So with the event fresh in people's mind, you should email your attendees the next day to thank them for attending and summarizing any announcements that you made during the event, or to highlight any of the event's topics. You should include an asset from PMC's collateral library that gives them more information about the solution or product. For example, a customer case study is a really great way to let them see how another company or customer would put the product into practice. With follow-up blog posts and social media, you can share the success of your event with photos and videos and remind attendees about their positive experience. You can link to product pages or other assets to let your audience learn more. And then you'll see that we have a handover here where your sales team will follow up with prospective customers, hopefully offering them more assets like a demo or webinar. Great, the next scenario, again, you'll send out a follow-up email within 24 hours to thank your attendees for attending. And in this scenario, we have you sending out an invitation to a webinar. So the webinar is a great opportunity for them to get a deep dive into the product and to ask questions and to get to know your team a little bit more. People are often quite busy, so we recommend scheduling the webinar 2 weeks after your event. And be sure to send reminders about the webinar 2 days and 2 hours beforehand to those who registered. A few days after the webinar, a member of your sales team should contact those who attended. And there are a number of presentation decks on PMC which you can use for your webinar as well. And that's found in the collateral section also. Cool. The last scenario, again, we start by sending a follow-up email to thank guests. And in this scenario, we suggest sending out a 3-question survey. Be sure to highlight that it's only 3 questions and it will only take a few minutes of their time, as people are often quite time conscious. It's also a good idea to perhaps incentivize it. So maybe if they fill out the survey, say that they're entered into a chance to win some swag. So there are a number of free or cheap options to launch a survey, such as SurveyMonkey or Google Forms. It's going to depend on the focus of your event, but it's important to ask specific questions because this information will eventually be helpful to your sales team in contacting these people. So a few suggestions of the questions that you should ask are, do you believe that X product would be critical for your business today? Were the enterprise offerings that we discussed of interest to you? Which product or service specifically? And then what type of material would you or your stakeholders want to help you learn more about these products? And then include a drop-down menu such as like webinar, emails, white papers, etc. Yeah, and then this is going to help equip your sales team to reach out to them with the information that's going to be most useful to them. We're going to launch our last poll now, which is around UTM tags and analytics. Yeah, so we definitely recommend using UTM tags and Google Analytics, and we'll get into that quickly now. Love that sound. Cool, so a few key takeaways that should be part of your overall event planning. So before your event, the sales and marketing teams need to be in alignment about the goals of the event, how you define a lead, and how and when you want the handover process to take place. The sales team needs to understand the follow-up process in order to pick up a conversation with a prospective customer. So this should be done during event planning time. Next, you should be sending the relevant assets. So whether it's the marketing team or the sales team sending more information to these prospective customers, you need to make sure it's relevant to their customer journey. So you don't want to send them any introductory material when they're already further down the funnel and need to know, for example, how other businesses practically use the product in their day-to-day running of their business. And then lastly, we have a look at how people converted into attendees and from attendees to customers. So was it your LinkedIn ads that were successful? Was it an email campaign? You need to analyze what worked and what didn't work so that you can use those insights into planning your next event and follow-up process. So this is where Google Analytics and UTM tags will help you. So you can track where your audience is coming from and what they're engaging with the most. Awesome. We're going to hand it over to Nigel and Claire now from New Verve Consulting. Hi, Nigel. Is it possible for you to share your screen right now?
Yes, can do.
I wonder if I need to stop my share. Awesome.
Okay, just checking you can see a screen with a Scottish flag on it.
Yes,
we do.
Great. Okay, Cool. So thanks very much. So I'm Nigel Radford. I'm founder and CEO of New Verve Consulting. So we're based in Scotland. We established ourselves in 2011 and then joined the Atlassian ecosystem in 2016. So as I said, we're based in Glasgow on the west coast of Scotland. We're a gold solution partner, so we achieved that status, I think it was about 6 months ago now. Previously, we were silver for a couple of years beforehand. We specialize in ITSM, PPM, automation and reporting. So quite wide, and we work both private and public sector across numerous verticals and horizontals. Our mission is to inspire effective teamwork, and our values are core to shaping that vision. So just a few of our values there just for reference. So in terms of the event, so it's been mentioned already. So we launched an event, Atlassian in Scotland in 2019. The inaugural event had a focus on project portfolio management. Our goal was to bring the Scottish Atlassian community together in Scotland to collaborate, discover, and have fun. So this was the first event of its kind in Scotland. So what we found was that many ecosystem events were happening down in London and the southeast. And while there were some user groups happening, there wasn't really an ecosystem event for businesses to kind of come together. So we launched this event for that purpose. We had keynotes from Atlassian, Accenture Scotland, Synergy Learning, Tempo, EasyBI, and Software Plant. Overall, we had 70 delegates in our first event, mostly comprising Scottish decision makers. And they spanned IT directors, PMs, and obviously there were some Atlassian users and admins there too, but mostly decision makers. A few pictures from the event. So you can see we had a panel discussion as well at the end. Great collaborative venue based in Glasgow at the University of Strathclyde. So in terms of our event follow-up tactics from last year's event, so there's kind of four main points that I'm going to run through in a bit more detail. So first up, the delegate survey. Staff retrospective is very important. Post-event digital campaign, multi-touch, and metrics obviously are key. So I'll dive a bit deeper into each of those. First up, the delegate survey. We distributed that via PMC within 24 hours. We used SurveyMonkey, and we just provided a link to that through our email campaign in PMC. So we actually took quite a detailed, fairly granular approach, and we included 10 questions. They're just listed there just for transparency. Next year, we may make that a bit slimmer. The point was raised before that time is precious, obviously, and the less questions you have, the more likely you might be to get some feedback. Overall, our Net Promoter Score was 40, which is above the global benchmark. So that was really, really good for us, great results. The staff retrospective, we had that within 2 weeks of the event. We used a Trello board, so just a quick screenshot of some of the things that we discussed internally. I won't run through them in detail, but this is obviously Trello is a great tool for doing these kinds of things, and we use it quite a lot for retros. Multi-touch digital campaign. So we sent out emails via PMC, so thank you emails. We shared presentations, and we also shared the photos. So that's just an image of PMC with our campaign. We also ran a social campaign, so we had a regular series of posts. We used the hashtag Tartan Teamwork, and we're using that again for next year's event. And we also had a social wall via an online app called Wakelet, which is quite useful. That's just a quick screenshot of what it might look like. And blogs, which are really important for us. So we're trying to increase our amount of content just to build trust and engagement. And related to the event, post-event blog post is really, really important. And what we also did is we ran a series of monthly blogs from keynotes over the course of about 6 months following the event. And there's some examples of some of those blog entries. So for example, Andrew from Accenture did challenges with digital PM tools. In terms of metrics, so We use lots of metrics to measure success. Most important ones are obviously attendee numbers, PMC, email opens and clicks. So PMC has great analytics, which are really, really good to review and dive into. Survey feedback, obviously that's pretty important too. And we've highlighted a few things that we're going to address for next year's event. Social media engagement. And this is a big one, so return on investment. So I would say decide what this looks like well in advance of actually starting to plan your event. So for us, initial ROI would be X times our investment within a certain time period. So for us, it was within 6 months. So in terms of the next day after the event, I thought it'd be useful just to kind of summarize what our typical activities are the day after. So first up, we distribute an event feedback survey and we send out thank you emails to everybody involved. We also use social, so Twitter and LinkedIn, just to send out thank you messages, high-level highlights, and it's also a good opportunity to create a social media poll. So for example, event highlights and so on. We're quite a small business, so we've 10 people. So sales is actually, it's a devolved responsibility just now. But it is important, whoever has that role, to do that handover meeting between marketing and sales, just to ensure continued alignment. And obviously you can tweak your sales plan and post-event marketing as required. Also, initial meetings with staff, we start doing that the day after and schedule a more formal event retro using that Trello board I showed earlier. In terms of improvements for next year's event, so we're running the event again on the 10th of March next year. We do have a few improvements that we've highlighted just to continue interest and drive engagement. One of the things that we discussed was just to improve internal messaging, which is pretty important. So we're going to be more rigorous about that this year, just to optimize opportunities and engagement. We're also going to record our presentations this year, so create video content and also sound bites from delegates. What we'll do is we'll distribute that to event attendees via PMC. We will publish the content on the website as well, probably behind an access point, so signing up to our newsletter. And this is going to be great just for repurposing for future marketing activities, both for the event and other types of marketing activities. And lastly, we're going to run joint webinars as well with keynotes and sponsors. So that's not something we did last year. We focused more on blog content. So we're going to do blog articles, but also webinars as well next year. I think that's it really from us. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to share our insights. And I believe there are some questions to follow as well.
Yes, there are. Just want to comment on the fact that you have blog posts by keynotes like 6 months later is so great. And now that you're going to be running, you're going to be recording some sessions in your 2020 event, like just think of how much more content you can use throughout the year. So it's a really brilliant idea. Yeah, so we're going to run a Q&A. We're going to kick off just to inspire people to ask some questions. I can do a little share of this. Cool. And again, anyone who's watching, please do send in any questions. Nigel can help answer. We can help answer as well. So yeah, do send those in. But just to kick off the Q&A session, so Nigel, what benchmarks do you put into place to ensure that you have a successful event?
Sure. So I touched on some of those, I guess, already in the slides, but there's a few things that we put in place. So firstly, financial. So having a look at your forecast versus actuals. We'll be comparing with historic spend in our last year's event as well for the next year's event. We'll also be looking at performance across social media platforms. So actually the biggest impact for us was LinkedIn, followed by Twitter. And then we'll be identifying which posts resonate the most with our followers as well. Yeah. PMC, all the analytics there, so email opens and clicks. We'll also be comparing that with previous events, but also different campaigns we run as well. I spoke a little bit about sales and marketing alignment as well before, so we'll be using that too. So just in terms of actual conversions of leads for us and how qualified they might be from the event. And then feedback as well from the survey. So I think I shared the global benchmark stat in the previous slide. So that's really, really important for us as well.
And like, how far in advance of your event are you planning some of these goals and benchmarks and ROIs?
Yeah, so the ROI is done very, very early on. So we've got our next event coming up in March, and we pulled together our exec summary probably about 2 or 3 months ago. So it's well in advance, so we have kind of clear expectations of what we want to achieve.
Amazing. Cool. Next question. This kind of is similar. How do you measure if your event was a success?
Sure. So again, similar to what we had shared on previous slides. So number of attendees is obviously very important. So in our first event, we were quite ambitious actually. We targeted about 100 attendees, but we got 70 on the day, which is a pretty good return rate. Net promoter score through the SurveyMonkey, likelihood of delegates recommending to others. In terms of specific feedback, obviously it's good to have positive feedback on the survey, and then make adjustments for the next time round, which we've done for next year. Social media engagement, so retweets and impressions. Retweets, obviously you can get that information directly from Twitter. Organically as well, so just kind of people talking about the event, post-event, whether it be in client meetings or AUGs. Sorry, I'm using the wrong acronym, but the user groups, the community events, ACEs, and the target return as well. So I'd mentioned previously, I'm not going to share our specifics, but you should definitely work out what the factor increase might be in terms of your investment. So for example, if you spend 10K, you'd expect to maybe gain 4 or 5 times that in services and license sales over the next 6 months.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Next question. Are the people attending your event the decision makers? And if not, how do you reach them?
So generally, yes. So in our first event, I think it was 80% plus of total delegates were decision makers. We spent quite a lot of time just with a personal touch. So we got in touch directly with customers and prospects mostly via LinkedIn, which really helped a lot. It's time consuming, but for establishing a new event especially, we found that to be very, very productive and important. Research as well, just in terms of LinkedIn, participating in industry events as well helps. LinkedIn, I'd suggest Sales Navigator is quite a good tool, just generally. That's quite good just to kind of gauge people's interests. Also, LinkedIn groups is good as well. Generally, I'd say obviously don't post too much sales and marketing material in there, but if people have a genuine interest in coming to a community event and learning, and it's about learning and sharing information, then it's a good thing to share information about. And then our high value clients as well and prospects, just ensuring that they're added to PMC. So we've been doing that on an ongoing basis and just making sure they receive ongoing comms as well. So we've started up a monthly newsletter as well in the past 6 months.
Great. Yeah, and I guess I would suggest if the people watching, say, are in the position where they know the people attending their event are not necessarily the decision makers, it's a good idea in your post event survey maybe to add a question: are you the decision maker? Yes or no? And then if not, like what job title would be, just to give more insight and then to do perhaps more targeting the next time around.
Yeah, completely agree.
And then last of our questions, what does a successful marketing to sales handover look like?
So for us, I mentioned we're quite a small business, but I think generally it's important for small, medium-sized companies for it to be a company-wide effort. So input from customer-facing staff, for example, through the staff retro and Trello board, I think that's really important. pre and post event marketing and sales meetings just to ensure you're all aligned. So we do that quite a lot. Just an established way of monitoring your PMC leads as well and forwarding them to sales. For us, we don't use Salesforce. We actually have a dedicated Jira board, which we use for our pipeline. So if anyone has a discussion at an event, whether it be the specific one we've been speaking about or something else, everybody has a responsibility to qualify that and record information in our sales board in Jira. Personalized thank you emails as well. So, we're all about building up relationships, and I think, that's what businesses should do. It's about relationships and maintaining those and strengthening them as well. So we take a soft approach to sales, and we ask people to opt into our newsletter through that, and we also do quite a lot of follow-up emails as well in a sales capacity.
Yeah, amazing. So that's the end of our questions. If anybody has any questions, please do use the feature to type in your questions. Do you have any questions for us, Nigel? Not to put you on the spot.
I don't think I've got any specific questions. I think, was there anything maybe from our slides that you'd suggest that we do differently?
Ooh. What do you think, Krisha?
I think the presentation is very on point.
Yeah.
So this is something that is very straightforward. I think our audience actually kind of recognize some of the points that has been presented by Nigel, and I'm sure they also struggled to set up certain goals. Again, it all depends on bandwidth, right? Because some partners do have salespeople, but not a dedicated marketing person. I know, Nigel, you had this in the very beginning of the initial kickoff of Atlassian in Scotland, and now you have Claire. So you're kind of like a machine that's just pushing out all these promotional activities. But a couple of our partners in the ecosystem don't really have even half a bandwidth of marketing. So it's really good to try to find a platform like the Atlassian Partner Marketing Center, or PMC, to kind of automate these communications and track engagement from whatever content they're actually pushing out to promote their events, whether it's online or offline. But I have to say it's great that you did point out how you can repurpose some of the content that you were able to produce during the event and use that to promote the following event, because this is now becoming an annual event for you guys. And I also see that trend coming up with other partners. So when they do an initial event and they see a certain asset or a certain material that they've produced from the initial event, I see that being repurposed in blogs or in social posts, or even they even share it in Atlassian community, like the site where the Atlassian community is sharing best practice. So that's one of the things that you can also take advantage of.
Yeah, and just because somebody is following you on Twitter, say, it doesn't mean that they have yet signed up to your newsletter or check your blog. So it's totally fine to put them on a lot of different platforms and then, direct them to where you do want them to go. Maybe your website or to sign up to the newsletter. It's just a matter of setting goals. And then same for the survey. I think I do suggest whittling it down to 3 to 5 questions, but also it's the same thing. You need to set a goal for what do you want out of this survey. So if you want to understand who the decision maker is, then you need to ask questions about that. I saw that because this was your 2019 was the first time you ran that event. Is that right, Nigel?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so it makes sense that the questions are how did you hear about this event? Were you recommended? Those kind of metrics are what you wanted to learn. So just setting those goals for what you want out of the survey. so that they make sense.
And
Yeah.
maybe just to assess a little bit about the role of the attendee, even though they're not the decision maker, a lot of them can be influencers to the decision maker.
Yeah.
So maybe it's good to also kind of ask the question, what kind of impact would that attendee will have in terms of like making that final decision to, go with your solution or use the Atlassian tool set.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point actually, because when we do kind of gain prospects, whether it be for an event or through our website or wherever, it usually might start with somebody that isn't a senior decision maker in the business.
Yeah.
But like you say, they're an influencer and they can open that discussion, and then that's where the starting point is. So yeah, totally agree with that point.
Yeah, and like with C-level, like if you're targeting C-suite, there's just a very limited amount of their time in the day, so they won't be able to attend all kinds of events, right? So sometimes they do send somebody to kind of assess the solutions that's being presented during these partner events, and then they go back with their assessment to the decision maker, and that's where you can kind of like gauge whether or not the person who attended your event have that business case that he needs to kind of prepare for the decision maker in the company.
Yeah.
It's good to actually capture that also in the survey.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention, actually, just pick up on, so you've mentioned, obviously we took on a marketing person, which coincided with our first event. So what I would say, I'm not sure the profile of the other attendees, but for us as a business, that decision to take somebody on in marketing was really key for us to grow the business, so that we can engage with our audience, build brand and awareness and so on, but also so that we have an actual marketing strategy and implementation plan associated with it. Okay. So if the other attendees are of a similar size or thinking about doing that, I would say that it's a great thing to do when you're kind of reaching the 10 staff mark.
Yeah, great. So we don't have any questions, in which case I'm just going to continue through the last of our slides. These are some links for more information, which I'm going to also send out in my follow-up email. There is an event best practices series that the Atlassian events team is putting on. They recently did their event acquisition and administration webinar, which you can find on YouTube. And I know there's going to be another one around operations and sponsorship. I believe it's in February, but don't quote me on that. But either way, it's a great series to follow. And then, we're picking this up in the new year. So please do register for our January PMC hours, where we will be going over the cloud playbook and a number of our cloud PMC campaigns. We have 9 cloud campaigns now. Many of them are localized into German and French. So this will help you navigate those campaigns, decide which ones are best for your company to use. So that's the 16th of January from 2:30 to 3:30. So I'll send a link as well in the follow-up email to register. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending. I hope you found it useful. And I hope you have a great holiday, and looking forward to working with all of you in 2020. And thank you very, very much, Nigel and Claire. I thought this was really useful to have you on the call, and I'm sure everyone appreciates it. So thanks very much.
Thanks for having us, and happy Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. You too. And till next time then. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
End the call.